Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV Velocities in Music, the best kept secret in music reviews. Tom, you and I we previewed an album that came out a few weeks ago. It's been like a month now, I think. That really kind of took us off guard. But we had some other albums at the time, Coldplay, Black Keys, La Dispute, other albums that we wanted to review prior to reviewing this one, just because we were just waiting to see if we were getting any requests for this record. Broken Twin May. Now, I had never heard of Broken Twin before, and I'm guessing most of you haven't either, considering we didn't get any requests for this record. Broken Twin May is the first album for Broken Twin, who is a female artist who does a lot of work with piano and strings, and that's how I would describe the sound of this is predominantly made by piano and strings. Although there is guitar in a couple tracks, it's very light, and that's not the point. The point is the vocals, and Broken Twin's just total mood apocalypse that she's trying to create. Tom, what was your take on May? How did she construct these songs, and how did they affect you?
Well, it definitely is a mood bomb of an
album. It's a mood bomb for sure.
You absolutely hit it with that. And that's coming from every angle. That's coming from the instrumentation, performance, production, lyrics. I mean, there's just, and it's not even just surrounding like heartbreak from a romantic standpoint.
No,
it's just
not.
About life in general and things that can happen and your overall mindset and attitude towards things. And I like albums like that because they tend to be a little more universal and a little more ethereal in nature. I feel like they can just kind of wash over you, and because they're not attached to maybe any specific incident or anything like that, and because they're not made to be super autobiographical, doesn't mean that the artist can't put themselves into their own work, but if they're subtle about it in the right ways, it makes it a lot easier to relate to. I think that's something that Broken Twin really succeeds on in this album, and particularly, getting more into the sound from there. You mentioned piano, and the piano is something that just haunts this entire album. It's like its own freaking person.
and how they choose to produce and record the piano, I think, was absolutely crucial for the conveyance of the sound of that record.
I totally agree.
It's not keyboard piano. It's not a MIDI keyboard with a piano effect on it. It's actual piano recorded in open air and produced very finely to give it that open air feel. This transcends to the strings and to the other instruments that they include, to the percussive elements, which by the way, they never use like a full drum kit. It's like different bass drums and even timpani at times, and you're hearing, it's just a very open air sound. It's like you're in this small little amphitheater and you're getting played to. That's always a very intimate experience whenever that happens.
And there's a distance and a depth to it that really works in favor of that as well, because this is something that I mentioned before. I think I mentioned this when we reviewed the latest Swans album, but there's a difference in mixing and production and just recording engineering in general between putting distance between the sound source and the microphone and just mixing it up. You could have someone singing 15 feet back from a microphone, and even if you jack it to the top of the mix, you can tell that the singer is 15 feet away from the microphone. Good. This is a technique that I feel like a lot of people aren't taking advantage of these days because everything is over-compressed and everything is in your face. But those subtleties really make a difference. And what you hear here is them doing just that. And even if the piano and strings were recorded in such a way where they were somewhat synthesized, they sure do a hell of a good job of not making it seem that way. It sounds very authentic, and it's produced in such a way to create that spatial aspect and that distance. However, the vocals are still very present.
Yes.
Even if she's singing softly, it sounds like she's singing right into the damn microphone. She is millimeters away from it, and so you hear every little nuance of her voice, and it really creates that personal effect.
It totally does, and I believe that that's because she has just a very strong voice. Her vocals are well done. I think from a technical standpoint, her tone, resonance, everything there just sounds fantastic. And she's just able to project, and that's able to, it's just, it creates a very dynamic vocal listening experience, which I enjoyed throughout this record. She even adds, it has almost an operatic effect because she has a little bit of like tremolo to her vocals.
Definitely.
And you can especially hear that later on in the album in tracks like track 8, In Dreams, or track 9, If Pilots Go to Heaven. But getting back to the mood, this is a very heavy album to listen to. I would not ever recommend somebody listens to May while they are just wanting to be in a good mood. It's not that first album I would put on in the morning on my way to work. It's not something I'd put on in a car ride somewhere with your friends, because it's just, this is an introverted listen. This is a listen that you really need to have, and it needs to be turned up loud so you can get the full effect of the production, the intimacy going on there. It also, you got to be in a position where you're willing to have kind of an emotional reaction with the music, because it's emotionally engaging. She's singing about heavier subject matters, and there's a lot of minor keys here, and it's just very beautiful music that is also sad. So it's something that you just need to be prepared for, because if you go listening to this on your way to the state fair, you're not gonna derive what the album's intention is.
No, not at all. Context is everything
really
for a listening experience like this. Don't force it on yourself. You know, if you find yourself in the kind of mood that we're talking about, this would be a great album to put on. But it will absolutely fail in your eyes, or ears rather, if you listen to it in the wrong context. So keep that in mind, please, because that's something we take really seriously.
Yeah. Now, one thing I love that she does that we've talked about in many previous reviews is dynamic contrast.
Yeah.
And usually what she does is she uses her string arrangements that she's including in these records, or in these tracks, to swell the song up and make it louder. And she also sings louder to correspond with that. So while piano may be the foundation of a lot of these tracks, it's the strings and vocals that really add the intensity. She doesn't rely on percussion or electronic melodies or lots of layers to do it. She just projects more with the tools that she's using at the start of the track. This is a very powerful songwriting technique. I think track 2, Glimpse of a Time, is one of the more beautiful tracks I've ever heard. But the most powerful tracks in my mind were tracks 8 and 9, In Dreams and If Pilots Go to Heaven. What really got me into this record was, even though this isn't my favorite track on the record, was If Pilots Go to Heaven. It's a 4-minute track, but by the end of it, she's like adds in a ton of vocal layers, and it gets extremely loud. It gets extremely loud for just like 3 or 4 seconds. Completely commands your attention, and then pulls it all back, and then is just singing to finish out the mix. It is an incredibly powerful songwriting technique, and it blew me away. While that's not my favorite song on the album, the song before it is In Dreams, piano and strings, and it just kind of builds throughout the track, and just masterfully done and produced and delivered, and quite frankly, very impressive. Now, while I love some of the tracks on this, there were some that I just were like, nah, this is good, but I don't really like think that they're on this like masterful level like the tracks I just described.
I agree.
So I would say that there is a slight displacement there. I feel like there's several tracks in the middle, tracks 4 through 6 at least, that definitely just weren't on the same level as the beginning and end of the record. I think the closing track is also very good.
Yeah.
And so I kind of came down on this just a little bit for that, which puts me into the low 80s. Tom, I'm going to go 83 on May. What would you give Broken
Cool.
Twins?
I'm going to go 81.
81. So 82 from Velocities in Music, a very good record. We would definitely recommend this to you, given those asterisks that we mentioned earlier. Have you guys heard of Broken Twin? Have you listened to May? If so, tell us your experience at www.velocitiesmusic.com or youtube.com/velocitiesmusic. And as always, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and let Tom and I know which records you'd like to see us review on this channel. I'm Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV, moving music critique forward.